What's going on, guys? Something that I've been thinking about lately has been getting into a flow state in life. But not, we don't need to be so broad about life. Let's focus on like day-to-day life. And before I go any further, you guys have probably heard of like flow or a flow state before. I know it's at the very least referenced, maybe it's a main focus of some philosophies, Asian philosophies in particular. Don't quiz me on them, I don't know the names of them, but this flow state is probably something you've heard from someone, or you've read it for yourself before. You've read it from someone's book or something. The idea behind a flow state, from what I know of it, is that when someone is in a flow state in their daily life, everything they do, it's like they flow from one task in their day to another, not in an unconscious way. It seems like it's quite the opposite. Like they operate in such a focused way to where all the outside distractions disappear. It's almost like they're operating, what would you say? It's like they're meditating all the time. That's kind of how I view flow state. In such a state of focus, which is something you can cultivate when you meditate, because people can think that meditation is difficult, that it can be difficult, but it's very simple. It's a very simple practice. It's not that easy, which is ironic because you're usually just sitting in one spot and being there with your thoughts, which can be the hardest thing to do, is to just to be with our thoughts. Well, it's pretty ironic. But that's what the flow state seems like, this meditative state that you're in all day while you're performing your daily tasks. You flow from one to the other like water, with no interruptions. Something presents itself as an obstacle in your way, you go around, you go under or over, like water does with obstacles in its way. It's this intense focus that can make everything easier, because when we're in a flow state, we're not, and I think we've all experienced it before, this flow state where we've sunk so deeply into what we're doing in the moment. That could come from, I'm assuming for most people, like for myself, it comes when I'm doing things I really enjoy. Like when I'm editing YouTube videos, like when I edit this YouTube video, later on, I really sink into the process. Like the whole entire editing and creative process I sink into. And it's that mode, like for me, for example, where I lose track of time and there's no worries. There aren't really any thoughts in my head besides what's right in front of me. It's a soul calming focus. And I'm asking myself, how do we get into a mode like that more often in life? This mode to where we're not always, every task that we're presented with, everything, starts to be viewed as an obstacle. We have to study for a test, and we immediately pass a judgment onto that as good or bad, or in this case, in this context, it would be as difficult or not difficult. And there's a reason why most people don't like studying for tests, even if it's, it's for, let's say it's for a major at their college that they really enjoy. They really enjoy the particular subject matter of this test, and still they don't want to study. It's work. We tell ourselves it's work. So we attach this judgment to it, and it's associated with negative emotions, so we don't want to do it. But this flow state, it's not that it counteracts that. It it just does away with it. That all dissolves because there aren't judgments passed. With the flow state, you sit down to study and you sink into it. And this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a little while now on the channel, is flow state is like the art of sinking into whatever you are doing. Kind of like, as a saying I've heard recently, wherever you are, there you are. It's like whatever you're doing in the present moment, that's what you're focusing on. The single-minded pursuit of whatever's in front of you. You know, like, it's like you're watching your hands, like whatever you're doing, whatever task is in front of you, that's what you're doing. Marcus Aurelius talked about this in the Meditations. He said something along the lines of, focus on what is in front of you like a man, like a Roman, something like that. I'm paraphrasing. It's been a while since I've read the Meditations. But that's what I've been asking myself. How do we get into this flow state? Seems to be when we forget about passing judgments on things and we just look at things for as they are. So if we have to go and wash the dishes, for example, it's not, oh, man, I have to go and wash the dishes. But it's also not trying to go to the other extreme where we're trying to psych ourselves into it, like to hype ourselves up in an artificial way. That may not work well either. Instead, what we can try is just looking at it how it is and saying, dishes are dirty, time for me to go and wash them. Let's sink into this task and just watch. Like genuinely try and enjoy it. Not try to psych yourself up in that artificial way and try to force ourselves to like it. Sink into it. Immerse yourself in the particulars of whatever activity or task that you're tending to. And in theory, those judgments go away. It's very calming. It's like a form of meditation in and of itself, I believe. You can do, like there's a reason why some people, at least, you might think these people are like psychopaths. They may be. Some people, for example, actually enjoy mowing the lawn. Probably more people than you think. More people than I think. Enjoy mowing the lawn because it's like a calming, cathartic experience for them. They go row after row down the lawn and they're focusing solely on that activity and nothing else is in their head for the hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever that they spend mowing the lawn and doing all their yard work. They're not thinking of anything else. It's time, and they probably maybe even look forward to it, even though you wouldn't think of like household like chores around the house as being something to look forward to. But things like, you could do that with anything. If we're talking about chores, if you're dusting your room, you develop this single-minded focus on what you're doing. Every stroke of your duster, every stroke of your duster on your furniture, you're paying attention. And as I said, that's a form of meditation in and of itself. Because with meditation, you're cultivating this focus by not focusing on everything else going on around you. When you're meditating, people meditate in very different ways. I've played around with different ways of doing it, ways that make it easier for me, with the hope that eventually it's something I'll come to look forward to, because it can be very calming. And that's what meditation is. I mean, people do it differently. I've heard from some people, for example, in this advice on meditation, that you let thoughts come and go, come into your head, and you see them, but you don't judge them, and you don't grip them, you don't attach yourself to them and take them. You just kind of let them float around. And thought enters your head, as they do all day, but when you're meditating, you let them go. Thought comes in, I gotta pay those bills in a few days, and it's gone. You just watch it go. And when we're in this flow state, while we're immersing ourselves in our tasks, whatever we're doing, paying our taxes, studying for a test, at our job working, editing a YouTube video, writing a book, whatever we're doing, it's like wherever you are, there you are. You're focused on one task. And you're going to focus on that task until you see it to its completion. And until it's done, you're not thinking about anything else. You're not worried about anything else that's going on in your life. This is the only thing going on. And so I keep putting an emphasis on sinking into it, because that's not just leaning into, it's not just leaning into things that are difficult, sinking into them. Like allowing yourself to become completely immersed in them. It's not, man, I don't really want to do these dishes and this kind of stuff. You're just doing the dishes. There's no judgment that comes along with it. You're just doing the dishes. And while you're doing the dishes, you're watching yourself doing the dishes. You are concentrating on doing them well. You're concentrating on scrubbing hard to get food out. And you're thinking about how the water feels. And you're watching the food and grime and everything wash off the dishes. That's the particulars part of immersing yourself in the particulars of whatever activity or task that you're tending to, that you're engaged in. That's what it is. It's a single-minded pursuit and progress, working toward whatever is right in front of you. Like what Marcus Aurelius said, focusing on what's right in front of you like a Roman, as he said, and nothing else. And letting everything else fade away into the background. Not even as background noise, you don't even hear it. Because you've entered that flow state. Now maybe, I'm sure people enter this flow state in many different ways, just like how I said that people have different ways of entering meditation. This seems to be a good way for me. Maybe it's a good way for you guys as well. And the flow state, once you enter it, makes things easier. You definitely slow down because there's no longer a need to rush. You're just focusing on the task. But by slowing down, you actually speed up. That is advice that I've heard from Elisha Long on YouTube. I have his channel featured on my channel if you go to the channels tab. But I can find his video. I'll link to his video in the description where he talks about that. That's good advice. By slowing down, you actually speed up. That's like a very counterintuitive way to think about it. You wouldn't think so. That if you are suddenly, one day you wake up and you look at your daily routine, and instead of rushing through everything, as you typically do, you're taking your time. You're taking your time so you can really sink into what you're doing. Stop thinking about what's going on around you and you're just brushing your teeth. Stop thinking about what may be going on in the future and you're just folding your laundry, right? So what he means by when you slow down, you actually speed up, is that you cut out the distractions. There aren't any distractions when you're in the flow state. So you keep moving from task to task. Or at the very least, when you're in your one task, you get it done faster than you would if you were trying to rush through it. Because you also have all these distractions in your head. But there aren't distractions in the flow state. So you work on one task, and even if you're doing it slower, with more intention, you get it done faster than if you were in your previous mindset, where you have all these distractions. Because you work on it for 10 minutes, and then you're distracted, and your attention goes everywhere. It doesn't happen in the flow state. Because the flow state's like a form of meditation. And that doesn't happen in meditation, right? So the flow state seems to be something that's very helpful. As I said at the beginning of this video, I think we've all experienced it to some degree. And maybe sometimes we don't even notice it. It can pass right by us. We don't notice it because we've sunken so much into what we're doing. And it usually happens, I think, when we're doing things we enjoy. But I think we can come to cultivate this flow state, this extreme sense, like this extreme time period of awareness in what we're doing. That's what it is. Just being aware of what you're doing. Very present in the moment, keeping your feet on the ground. And just noticing. what's going on, noticing what you're doing, not passing judgment onto what's going on around you. Just noticing. Just watching what's going on. Intently though. Doing these things with intention counts. We don't want to be doing things haphazardly. Doing with intention is important. So that's what the flow state seems to me. That's what I've been thinking about lately. And experimenting with it to see if I can figure out ways to extend that. And maybe it'll become something that can sustain me someday through an entire day, maybe, or maybe even longer. I don't know what the limits are to how long people stay in flow. Maybe people, we usually think of like monks. Maybe monks are, wherever they are in the world, these monks are in these flow states all of the time. They've sunken so far into the state, into what they're doing, and they're immersing themselves in the particulars of what they're doing, that there's no need for them to leave. Because wherever they are, that's where they are. There's no need for them to leave because there is no judgment. There's no alternative because that's all they're doing. It is the only option for them. So that's my rough definition of flow state. I'm sure there are books written about it. There are smarter people than myself who understand the topic more than I do. I'm not an expert on flow state or on Asian philosophies or anything like that. But that's my experience with the flow state, and I wanted to make this video. Maybe you guys can get some value from it and maybe start to learn how to cultivate it for yourself as well. I've been experimenting with it and it's been very helpful. So I hope it helps you guys as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and make sure to hit that notification bell as well so you'll get notifications on new videos and other content coming out. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.